This is the Conservative Cat Show. Thanks so much for listening. You're tuned in to the Conservative Cat Show. Be sure to subscribe. Welcome back, my fellow truth-seeking patriots. This is the only show where the claws come out for freedom, faith, and fiscal sanity. So today's show, today's episode is going to, drumroll please, your tax dollars. It's about the tax dollars and your giant red dog on PBS. That's what today's episode is all about today. Now, we're going to have a lot of segments this hour, and then we have a special guest coming, Hannah Kickless from the Right Perspective. She is a podcaster. She's going to be joining me to break down a few things this morning. One of them being, and I always stay away from pop culture type things. This is one of those celebrity type pop culture things. I didn't talk a whole lot about the whole astronomer CEO and the cheating on the Jumbotron. I'm just not a pop culture person. I am a news hound. Okay. I like news, but I think that Hannah is going to have a really interesting perspective on this. She is the pop culture queen. Anything pop culture, I usually go to her and I'm like, hey, have you heard about this? What should I think about it? What do you think about it? So I don't keep up with celebrities. I'm not like a celebrity person. I just think that fame is just nasty, and being in the spotlight at all is just not something that is interesting to me. So Sidney Sweeney, she has this new bathwater soap out there. So it's on TikTok. And like I said, I'm not on this side of TikTok. Usually I get like news TikTok. So I'll get like the CBS stuff and like the CBS TikToks and a lot of like Donald Trump speaking at the podium TikToks, the White House TikToks. I'll get a lot of that stuff. I don't get this stuff. But Sidney Sweeney, she has this bathwater soap. And apparently there's a few drops of bathwater in it, like her own bathwater. And I guess it sent the feminists into a complete and utter meltdown. Like, they're really upset with Sidney Sweeney. Now, I went and I watched the ad in its entirety. And I thought to myself, I go, it's not that bad. And then I showed it to my husband and I said, well, what's your thought as a man? Like, I didn't tell him any of my thoughts on it. I just showed him, the TikTok or the commercial in its entirety, and he goes, kind of reminds me of the old like 80s commercials with the cigarettes and the girls and the beer and the swimsuit models, right? It kind of reminds me of that. Now this woman, she's fully like covered, okay? I guess she's in like this bathwater, and then there's bubbles and stuff like that. And I find it fascinating that the feminists have gone into a complete and utter meltdown over this, when there are so many things out there that are sexualized and sexualizes women. So many other commercials and entertainment that's out there that sexualizes women. And they say that Sidney Sweeney, this commercial, sent women back 100 years, which it's like, really? This is what you're going to be outraged about? I'm pretty sure I've seen women in BDSM gear, the fashion brand with the teddy bears, and I forget what it's called, Balenciaga, I think it's what it's called. I don't know, I'm not in this world, but there's so many different things out there that I would say that sets women back about 100 years, and this is like so anti-female, it's not even funny. This bathwater commercials, or this bathwater soap commercial, is not that bad, and it's reminiscent of like the old cigarette commercials or the old beer commercials. There's actual sex appeal that Sidney Sweeney has, I think, and that's why they don't like it, the feminazis. We're going to talk at length about that with Hannah. We're also going to be talking about this SNAP disaster, this EBT disaster, whatever you want to call it. Illinois is about to blow billions on food stamp errors. Now, I dug into the numbers and I couldn't believe how bad Illinois is. And in respect to the rest of the nation, we're worse than 38 other states when it comes, which of course, Illinois always seems like we're racing towards the bottom. Property taxes, corporate income tax, mass population exodus. This is just another one of those things where we epically fail at. So apparently our SNAP errors our food stamp errors are, and our error rate is very great, and you're going to wind up paying for it because of this new law, federal law, that holds states accountable for their stamp errors, for their food stamp errors. So we're going to get to that, but I do want to start with this Illinois congressman who's fighting to save Clifford the big red dog with your tax dollars. And I told you guys yesterday that I am not a fan of lying to children. Clifford the big red dog, like, I'm not anti-pretend. Okay, I want to be very clear. I'm not anti-pretend. I, have a funny bone in my body, believe it or not. And I'm not a complete stick in the mud, although I would say I'm a pessimist. This Clifford the big red dog thing, dogs can't be red. Okay, and I'm not gonna let my kids think that dogs can be red, just like I'm not gonna tell them that Santa Claus is real, or pretend to like Santa Claus, or lie to them and say that Santa Claus is real. I don't think it's all that educational. Have you ever watched Clifford the Red Big Dog, or the Clifford the Big Red Dog? It's not all that educational, and to be honest with you, the entire premise of the cartoon here is based on a lie that dogs can be red. They can't. Okay, so like bright red. Okay, and I know I'm gonna get people in the comment section who's like, oh well, dogs can have like a reddish brown tint. Come on now, this is not a naturally occurring color in dogs. So you heard that right. Clifford the Big Red Dog, this PBS icon, cartoon canine. Apparently, this is the new saint of taxpayer waste, and we can justify taxpayer waste because Clifford the Big Red Dog can't be touched, and he is like this saint that we cannot touch. And God forbid we cut it. And by the way, Clifford the Big Red Dog, you can probably get it on some sort of streaming platform. PBS probably just runs reruns of the cartoon. Anyway, Eric Sorensen, one of my favorite congressmen, him and his peanut butter jelly sandwiches. Okay, Ray Estrada, ever since he told me this, I can't get it out of my brain. I went back and there's like a search tool, and I highly recommend you do this on all of your politicians, and you can search up any word. And I searched up sandwiches in the search tool on Facebook, and I found out that this guy has posted, I don't know, like 5 within the last couple of years, pictures of his sandwiches, like peanut butter jelly, ham and cheese, whatever the case is. He's not a serious person. I don't know how he got elected to Congress. It's fascinating to me. But anyway, he's crying on the steps of Capitol Hill, out in front of Capitol Hill. And why is he crying? Because Republicans dared to cut funding for public broadcasting. Now, we talked about this earlier in the week. We're talking about over $1 billion in cuts, about $1 billion in cuts to public broadcasting. This is going to go towards things, I'm sure, to defend the border, to fix the roads. And I'm okay with cutting it from public broadcasting because public broadcasting is not all that useful. Let's take a look here. Eric Sorensen crying in front of the Capitol Hill steps.
Hi there, everybody. Congressman Eric Sorensen with you here at the steps of the U.S. Capitol. Most people back home have probably never heard of rescission votes before. And that's what President Trump is making us do in the Congress today. Now, a rescission vote is where a president can force to take away funding that was already appropriated by the Congress. And this one cuts more than $1 billion from Sesame Street, from All Things Considered, from funding for our local NPR and PBS stations. Now, these are small market television and radio stations that need some help to stay afloat because they can't take a profit from advertising. They can't take political ads. So last night, I voted no, and there are many reasons why. First, public broadcasting is one of the few places where Americans can turn for trusted news like PBS NewsHour and quality education like Clifford the Big Red Dog. But this especially hurts WTVP in Peoria, WQPT in the Quad Cities. It will especially hurt WGLT in Bloomington Normal, WCBU in Peoria, WVIK in the Quad Cities, and WNIJ in Northern Illinois. These are not political outlets. These are outlets for people to be entertained and educated. And more than that, they're trusted. And I happen to know something about earning the trust of the people, because you invited me into your living rooms day after day for decades. It wasn't because I was giving you a 30% chance of rain. It was because I was telling you why things happened the way that they were happening. There was something different about what we did. And before I announced my run for the United States Congress, you never knew what my personal politics were because ethically I kept it all to myself. Local broadcasting not only keeps us informed, it brings us closer to one another. Public broadcasting oftentimes showcases our local history. It educates our kids and it also holds elected leaders accountable. And I'll tell you, I have been asked many tough questions from our NPR and our PBS stations. It's not political. That's the point. This rescission bill is aimed at taking away funding that was already appropriated for these stations. Their budgets are complete. Their employees need to be paid. This is unfair. And this is especially problematic because we are seeing a near extinction of local journalism in newspapers and investigative journalists in broadcast news. They're the endangered species today. So if we don't do what we can to actually bolster journalism, we're only going to be left with rumor, the rumor that swirls on social media. And you don't need me to tell you that's a really bad idea. So gone could be programs like Out and About on WCBU that spotlights the arts in Central Illinois by talking with actors and musicians and community leaders about upcoming arts events. Or Riverway Stories on WVIK. Riverway gives us the important information about the Great Mississippi River and what it means to live right along one of the world's most important resources. Look, I believe that every American deserves access to community-driven public media. And I will always stand up for the honest journalism that keeps our neighbors informed. This is a bill that has no business being considered by Congress, let alone passed. And it now opens up this new Pandora's box because now President Trump, he can use the rescission process to cut funding from just about any part of our federal government. He could rescind funding for our roads or for NASA or for schools or for anything. It's a test by the Republican Party that they failed to hold the line. This vote threatens to upend the idea that we need bipartisanship in this place and that's how we should get things done. Because what happens now when a different political party takes control down at the White House and the executive branch changes, does that mean that the legislative branch doesn't do anything anymore? We could have found waste, fraud, and abuse at any point, but the GOP chose to go it alone at the expense of you. I want to thank all of the countless constituents who have...
Okay. That's about it. I'm done with that. Eric Swartzen. Okay, Congress recently passed this rescissions bill. Basically, a budget cleanup. That is what this is. It's a budget cleanup bill, and this has been done before. It's not anything really all that new. Okay, Eric Swartzen is sounding the alarm as if this is incredibly unprecedented. Now, this was championed by President Donald Trump and, yes, House Republicans. But one of the biggest items here is that public broadcasting was on the chopping block. You know, the nonpartisan, the trustworthy, the educational channels like NPR and PBS, you know, who spend half their time pushing social justice activism and the other half rerunning documentaries narrated by people who hate the country that made them rich. Okay, so these documentaries typically feature very high-paying public broadcasters. And Illinois Congressman Eric Swartzen, a Democrat, he goes no way to the cuts. He says no way to the cuts, and he stood in front of the Capitol steps there and gave a full-on, I mean, this was a 5-minute rant about public broadcasting. Now, I could talk about public broadcasting for hours on end. I used to be an NPR intern, a paid employee. I know the ins and outs. Okay, He gave a full-blown TED talk here about the value of taxpayer-funded TV and taxpayer-funded radio. Okay, he said public broadcasting is where Americans turn for trusted news, like PBS Hour, and educational programs like Clifford the Big Red Dog. Like I said, Clifford the Big Red Dog, it's really just based on a lie. And I don't know when we got comfortable lying to our children. The enemy lies enough. I don't know why we'd lie to our children and tell them, hey, yeah, dogs can be red. No, they can't. Okay, I'm not going to lie to my kids. And I'm not anti-pretend, but the kids are going to know that it's pretend. Okay, I'm not going to show them Big Red Dog Clifford and said, yes, this dog can be anything he wants to be. If he's a red dog, then he can be a red dog. No, that's not reality. There is no such thing as a red dog. The Clifford made the cut, folks. So, you know, they want to push this radical gender theory, a radical race theory on our children through these cartoons a lot of the time. Clifford the Big Red Dog, maybe not the biggest culprit of that, but there are definitely PBS cartoons out there that are pushing this radical gender theory, and this is before kids can even tie their shoes. So apparently, if we don't fork over the $1 billion to BBS, kids in Bloomington Normal and Peoria will never learn that dogs can be red or that sharing is caring. I mean, have you ever watched these? I mean, it's not, you can go to YouTube and get the same exact thing. In fact, I think Clifford the Big Red Dog is streaming on some sort of platform, I'm sure. I know Sesame Street, or I think Sesame Street used to be on HBO Max. Now I think it's on Netflix. And you can get it pretty much anywhere. Okay, it's the freaking internet. Why are we still paying for TV and radio? It makes no sense. In a world where streaming dominates, where 48%, now these are real numbers, Nielsen numbers, 48% of all TV viewing is now done on online platforms. So what does that mean? Platforms like this one, whatever you're watching on, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, X, you know, streaming dominates. Now 48%. Now the 50 adds something percent, is like cable plus like radio and TV. Like 50% of people use that. Like, I mean, it's dying off and it's been plummeting. So Americans have more information in their pocket than the average newsroom had in 1975. We have things like ChatGPT, which can search all internet sources, all sources, within seconds, and it can give it all to you, all the information. I mean, like, we have the information in our packet, and we have more information in our pocket than the average newsroom has. So why on earth are we subsidizing this stuff? It's just dated. It's extremely dated. Public media defenders like Sorensen claim that this is about education and local news. It's about trust. But tell me where. Tell me that this isn't the truth. Public broadcasting is a dinosaur. TV, radio, dinosaur. Okay, and it's not cool. It's not the T-Rex kind, especially not NPR, where they're like whispering into the microphone with jazz music in the back. Okay, these are bureaucratic dinosaurs, and they have this fossilized 1970 liberal ideology. Now, according to Tim Graham of Newsbusters, these outlets are not relevant to younger Americans. He says, quote, my own 35-year-old son says, Dad, I don't watch TV and I don't listen to the radio. I've got Spotify. I'm pretty sure pretty much all your kids, anybody under the age of 35 is going to say that. So welcome to reality, Congressman Sorensen. We're not paying for this type of content anymore. Okay, we're done. We're paying for our own subscription. We're paying, you guys are welcome to send super chats, right? This is a new podcast. People use their dollars and then they pay for their own content via subscriptions. Advertisers will pay for the content, right? Let's use that model of programming, subscription-based, ad dollars. Like, why Why do you get taxpayer dollars and everybody else in the industry doesn't? So the kids programming, and I know that Sorensen will clutch to this like a little blanket, Sesame Street and Clifford's Big Red Dog. These things are no longer really on PBS. They're actually rerun on PBS, and then they wind up appearing on streaming platforms where people can watch them if they truly want to watch them. Okay, like I said, there's plenty of other kid content out there that's better than Clifford the Big Red Dog or even Sesame Street. So we're just subsidizing these old pipes. That's what I would call public broadcasting. It is just old pipes and nobody really watches it. Plus PBS and NPR, not neutral. Graham hit it on the head. From Newsbusters, he said Democrats run to the kiddie shows. They run there as a distraction. But really what everybody's concerned about, funding the public media, they're concerned about the evening propaganda. They're not really concerned about the Clifford or Curious George or whatever's on PBS. I don't even know. They're not really concerned about that. They're concerned about PBS News Hour, covering Donald Trump like he's the villain from a Marvel movie. And then they run this glowing praise. They'll run stories about Joe Biden and every failed initiative of Joe Biden. They'll praise him. Inflation is transitory. Remember that one? They'll praise him on his foreign policy. And then they'll parade around this climate change panic. They'll promote critical race theory. They'll push LGBTQ ideology into classrooms and via their education specials. Okay. And then you've got high school teachers playing this stuff as educational resources. And it's not educational. It's just straight up propaganda indoctrination. And they call themselves trusted news. I call it taxpayer funded narrative control. So these are not news outlets. These are partisan echo chambers that exist to reinforce one side of the aisle. And unlike CNN and MSNBC, you're forced to pay for them, which is not fair. So here's the kicker. We don't need public broadcasting anymore. We have choices. We have the free market. And the idea that we still need government-sponsored media in a digital age is pretty laughable. Like, it's humorous. YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, Substack, podcasts, live streams. I mean, independent newsletters. The American people are more informed now than they ever were. And you don't need a middleman in the middle with a government checkbook and with a government paycheck telling you what's trusted. You don't need that. And by the way, many of these public media folk are living large. How do I know this? I know that I worked there. They are offered entry-level salaries that are way above industry standard, far more money than industry standard. Graham said they've got better salaries and they've got better equipment. I've worked in both. I've worked in commercial radio and I've worked in NPR, public media. And I can tell you one thing for sure. Commercial radio equipment is old. When you work for some of these public media outlets, you've got the best top of the line equipment. And how can they afford it? It is because of the taxpayer dollars. Okay. So, you know what conservatives call this? They call it privileged propaganda. Okay. So they are privileged because they have the tax dollars. And then they are also pushing out propaganda. This is privileged propaganda and it's not fair and it's dated. It's outdated. And let's get real here. The most condescending part of Eric Sorensen's speech, and I swear if I had a nickel for every time this guy mentioned he was a meteorologist, I'd be a very rich woman. Look, he goes, I know about trust. I was your weatherman. You invited me into your home. Okay. I told you that it might rain, but it's not because I told you it might rain. It's because I would explain why it might rain. And that's why you trusted me. Oh, please. Like, all due respect to meteorologists out there, just because you can read a Doppler radar, which takes 30 minutes on YouTube to understand how to read a Doppler radar, you can literally look it up and it'll tell you how to read a Doppler radar. Okay. Doesn't make you a moral authority on media policy. Okay, and he almost is presenting himself here, a 5-minute rant really on the Capitol Hill steps. And he's presenting himself as if he's like a media policy expert. Sorry, Bal. Just because you can read a Doppler radar does not mean that you are the moral authority on this. So there's been whispers about Illinois issuing grants to the tune of millions of dollars to NPR and to PBS to try to make up for that federal funding. That might happen, where they allocate some dollars to kind of make up some of what they've lost. Now, at a federal level, it all goes to this corporation, public broadcasting. I forget the name of it, but it all goes to this one big kitty, and then they disperse it. Okay, so in Illinois, they get about currently, without the cuts, $12.8 million. Okay, for local TV stations. That's not including NPR, I believe. So, I mean, they get millions upon millions of dollars here in Illinois from the federal grants. Trust is earned. Public broadcasting, they have lost our trust because they are all about activism versus accuracy. And they're more about activism rather than accuracy. So they choose narrative over nuance and over facts. So Tim Graham, he nailed it on the head, nailed another point here. And he says public broadcasting doesn't let us into the conversation. That's exactly right. They claim to be guardians of democracy, but there is no democracy when it comes to their programming. How do I know this? I worked for them. Okay. There is no Christian, pro-life, liberty-centered voices that they tell you as a reporter to go interview. Okay, they'll give you some context to go interview, and a lot of those contexts are the same recycled types of people in the community, and they all have leftist bents. Okay, so have you ever heard Christian or pro-life person featured on NPR or PBS? No, you haven't. They don't give us any airtime. They lecture America about tolerance, but they won't invite us to debates, and yet they'll fully fund drag queen reading story hours and host those. I know public broadcasters have hosted drag queen reading story hours with toddlers, and they'll call it education. This isn't about public discourse. It's an ideological gatekeeping going on with government dollars. That's what's going on at NPR, PBS, and it's ideological gatekeeping. So let's wrap this up. We're going to pull the plug on government media. Why? Because it's not because we hate Big Bird. It's not because we really hate Clifford the Big Red Dog. But again, I have my own positions on those shows. I don't even think that they're all that great because they kind of lie to children. Like the premise of the shows lie to children. One, birds can't be that big. Two, dogs can't be red. Stop lying to kids. Okay. It's not because we don't want the kids to learn. It's because it's 2025, okay? And we shouldn't be paying for TV stations, specifically TV stations and radio stations that hate half the country. If liberals want progressive programming, go do it. Fund it yourself. Fund it through donations. Fund it through subscriptions like everybody else does, okay? Let the free market decide what media survives and not a federal budget line item. Okay, so Congressman Swanson, you are elected to serve the people of Illinois, not babysit Clifford. Okay, and if you cared about the future, you need to start standing up for fiscal sanity and stop hiding behind this nostalgia of Clifford the Big Red Dog. So if you're tired of subsidizing woke TV, state-run radio, share this episode. Share this episode, email your congressman, ask them why Clifford gets a check, but your small business doesn't. Why does Clifford the Big Red Dog get a check, but you don't? All right, I want to shift gears. We are going to be talking a little bit about food stamps. So SNAP. Let's get to some of your comments here this morning. Great analysis on Eric Sorensen. Illinois 17th voters need to replace him next year. Yes, privileged propaganda or a war expense for war effort against America and USAIDs. Yeah, so it's really just a war against anybody who's not like them. It's an ideological gatekeeping move that NPR PBS is doing. They're not allowing conservatives in on the conversation. Just think about the last time you heard a conservative on PBS or a pro-lifer on NPR. Most likely you haven't heard it. Tell me why Sesame Street talks about food insecurity. Yeah, it probably does. I don't know. I haven't watched the program lately. SNAP benefits and food pantries. Yeah, so this is all propaganda. I mean, it's trying to get your kids really early on in life and try to get them to be Democrats early on in life, and it's indoctrination. So I used to like PBS many years ago. Yeah, a lot of people have said that, but they went way too far left, especially when it was free using TV rabbit ears. Obama forced TVs to be digital in 2009 and ruined it. Free using TV rabbit ears. Okay, like the antennas. Okay, I never grew up really on TV. Now, shockingly, my parents, we really weren't like, I think I got my first TV. We got our first TV like when I was a freshman in high school. I'm only 26. So we were really not, we lived out in the boonies. We were really not an electronics family. Like my parents still don't have Wi-Fi, right? We weren't an electronics or technology type family, which is why I'm not really into pop culture. I opened the show talking about that today. Not really into pop culture or anything like that. And TV, he forced TVs to be digital in 2009 and completely ruined it. Yeah, I don't know that. I'm sure it was good at some point, but like everything, you go woke and then you go broke. Hence the rescissions bill where they cut the funding. So you go woke, you go broke. That's what happens. Let's get to food stamps, because today we're talking about food, not fried chicken, but not pot roast, not grandma's pot roast, but we are talking about taxpayer-funded food. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, known to most folks as food stamps. Okay, so this is in the news again, and for good reason. Illinois, your favorite dysfunctional blue laboratory of big government dreams, is now facing a possibility of paying $705 million a year because, get this, food stamp errors. Let me say this again. $705 million, that's close to $1 billion. Boom, poof, gone out the window to the feds because the state bureaucracy cannot figure out how to correctly hand out benefits. Okay, so let's get into the numbers here. And don't worry, according to Governor J.B. Pritzker, it's not his fault. It's not the state's fault. It's your fault. It's my fault. It's the dirty bastard Republicans in Congress. It's their fault. It's not the state's fault for their error rate. So let's get into the numbers. First, let's define our terms. SNAP, the SNAP error rate, is a measure of how often the state gives out the wrong amount of food stamp benefits, okay, whether that's too much or too little. Now, the federal government reviews eligibility and payment accuracy, and if the state routinely gets it wrong, there are now consequences, thanks to President Donald Trump. I think this was a provision within the BBB, but new federal law says, hey, you got to pay up, and you have to pay for some of this if you're going to get it wrong by a certain amount. So now if the error rate is 10%, a new federal law is over 10%. So if you're over 10%, a new federal law says that the state has to pay back 15% of the total SNAP costs back to the federal government. Okay, for Illinois, is with a massive caseload, that could mean a bill of $705 million a year. That's on the backs of Illinois taxpayers. Okay, that's on your back. $705 million, poof, gone out the window because we failed to give out the food stamps correctly. So let me be clear. This isn't a matter of forgetting to carry a one. Okay, this is a dysfunctional system funneling hundreds of millions of dollars to people who don't qualify, people who don't need it, people who get overpaid with the food stamps. And this is all due to sloppy management here in the state of Illinois. In 2024, this is the number that you have to remember today, okay? So in 2024, USDA data shows that Illinois' error rate is 11.56%. So that is a full percentage point and a half over the federal limit, which triggers you having to pay that back, that 15% of the total SNAP costs back to the federal government. So yes, you heard that right. Over 11% of all SNAP transactions in Illinois are wrong. Okay, they were wrong last year, according to 2024's numbers. Now that's 1 out of every 9. So think about this in the grocery store. 1 out of every 9 people most likely have a food stamp, EBT, that is wrong. Okay, that they shouldn't be getting. So if Walmart ran their registers that way, so say they had 1 out of every 9 registers that weren't functioning and they didn't collect the proper amount of money or scan the item correctly, they would go bankrupt within a month. Okay. That's just the facts. If they had a faulty register, 1 out of every 9 registers were faulty, they'd go bankrupt probably within a month. So here's where it gets fun. Governor J.B. Pritzker was asked about this a couple of days ago, and he didn't apologize. Okay, he said that they were going to attempt to fix it. So I don't want to say that he completely botched the answer here. But when he was asked about it, he said, quote, large states tend to have higher error rates. So that's what he's chalking this up to. He goes, it's not me, it's the scale. It's not me, it's the scale. Yeah, fat joke, sorry. Apparently, according to Governor J.B. Pritzker, the only way to lower the rate is to kick people off of food stamps. Yeah, kind of. I mean, logically, we should be kicking people off food stamps if they're being overpaid or if they don't qualify for the food stamps. Yes, you're supposed to kick them off. And since Illinois is so compassionate and so righteous and so virtuous, we'd rather overpay than risking cutting benefits for even a single person. Okay, that is the position of the governor. And my question for you, Governor, is it compassionate to keep a broken system in place that wastes over $700 million a year? To me, that's not compassion. That's corruption with a smile. And Senator Chris Bokema, he's a Republican. He suggested that maybe, just maybe, we figure out why the system is hemorrhaging money. Why is that happening? And what do we do about it? That's what Illinois needs to figure it out. And, you know, Pritzker, what did he do? Instead of saying, yeah, we need to figure out why our rate is so much higher than that of, we're higher than, 38 states are lower than us. So there are only 11 states that are higher than us. So we are higher than that of 38 other states. So Illinois is getting it wrong. Okay. Congressional Republicans are saying, hey, we need to cut out the waste, fraud, and have some sort of accountability here. That's why we're going to say states have to pay if their error rate is so high. Now, congressional Republicans, they're not trying to shut down these programs in its entirety, okay? But that's what Governor J.B. Pritzker will have you believe. And Democrats, cry me a river, okay? Cry me a river of entitlement tears. This isn't about shutting down anything. This is about cleaning the house. This is about fixing the math and about eligibility review, fixing the state government. So let's look at how bad Illinois is compared to the rest of the states. Like I said, our error rate is higher than that of 30 other states. That's right. We're only doing better than 11 states, including D.C. And Governor J.B. Pritzker says big states have big problems, big error rates. But he forgets that there are large states that are managing just fine. Texas, very large state. Michigan, Ohio. These are all pretty similar in size and demographics. Illinois is a pretty large state, but so is Texas. And their error rates all lower than ours, 8 to 10%. Not perfect, but they won't be penalized. Now, I want to be clear. If we were to get 10%, if you're at 10%, then in that range, the 8 to 10% range, then you're going to be on the hook for 10% of the SNAP cost. So that would be around $470 million compared to the $705 million. Still a massive number, but way better than $705 million. We need to get that error rate down by at least a percentage, so we're not on the hook for $705 million, okay? It's a $235 million difference. That money could go towards things like paving our roads. If we just got it down to the 10%, like why are we not in that range, the 8 to 10% range, like Mexico or Michigan, Texas, and Ohio? Like, why aren't we in the range of those states? Okay, because if we use that $235 million, we could use it for things like paving the roads, funding police, possibly reducing taxes, sales taxes on diapers, or property taxes, right? Let's do a tax decrease because we have this money that we thought we were going to have to spend, but we're not going to have to spend it because we did it right and we got our error rate down to the 8 to 10% range. But nah, most likely what's going to happen is the bureaucrats are going to still screw up, and it's your money they're burning, by the way. $705 million of your money they're burning up. Illinois doesn't have a magic money tree. Money doesn't grow on trees. It's running deficits. It's stacking up debt, the $145 billion pension debt. Okay, and when these SNAP fines come in and then they're due, who has to pay up? You. You have to pay up. And the only reason why you have to pay these SNAP fines is because they suck and their error rate is terrible. So let's zoom out for a second. The SNAP error rate isn't just a data point, it's a symptom. It's a symptom of bloated, inefficient, broken bureaucracy that no one in Springfield has the guts to fix. Now, Senator Chris Balkma, he did say we need to give staff the tools to succeed. So this is going to be the Illinois Department of Employment Security. I think that they're the ones who issue the SNAP. I got to double check that, but there's a state agency that issues SNAP. Whatever that agency is doing, like, yes, Balkma's right. We do have to give them the tools to succeed, but what's missing here is accountability. We need people to get fired. Okay, that's what we need. You're fired. And we need heads. No one's head is rolling. Illinois is failing, and we have to stop rewarding failure. No more funding to these agencies unless they get it together. Okay, this is the same state government, by the way. The Department of Employment Security, I'll have to double check. I think it might be the DHS who issues food stamps. There is a who issues, if you guys know, throw it in the comment section. I just want to double check this for you. Okay, it's it's the Illinois Department of Human Services. They issue the SNAP programs. Okay, terrible. I made a mistake. It's not the Illinois Department of Employment Security, but they did. The Illinois Department of Employment Security during COVID, they sucked. Remember, they gave all kinds of unemployment benefits to fraudsters in Nigeria and a ton of fraudsters and people who were exploiting that program, the unemployment during COVID. And what? We're supposed to trust this same state government with our food security for millions of Illinoisans? Give me a break. These state agencies have never proven themselves. And here's what the problem is. We are living HHS. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Hello there from India. I appreciate you being here this morning. Yeah, we need to get these state agencies to have some sort of fear of being fired within them. Okay. And unfortunately, the state of Illinois, most likely it's impossible to do, or nobody will ever do it, where they fire people who are incompetent. So let's be honest, this is more about, this is not about carrying the one or messing up some clerical issues, okay? This is about political strategy of dependency. So the Illinois state government wants you dependent on them. So the more people hooked on this government program and hooked on the government through the SNAP assistant program or the SNAP assistance, the more votes for the party who controls the purse strings, okay, for the party who controls those programs, Okay, and we know the Democrat Party controls those programs. All of them are installed by Governor J.B. Pritzker, the people at these state agencies. So Pritzker can spin this and try to make it about compassion all he wants. It's just a cover for control. They want people on SNAP. They don't want fewer people on SNAP. They want the people to be government dependent. They want more and more people on food stamps, because the more people who are on food stamps, the more they're going to be afraid to vote against the system. And they'll never vote against the system. Don't bite the hand that feeds you, right? It's welfare, government dependency, it's slavery. The new form of slavery is government dependency. It's the modern plantation, where the overseers smile and then they hand you an EBT food card, and then you're expected to vote for them. Okay, so as Christian conservatives, we believe in charity, but we don't believe in government dependency. Okay, I am not against the food assistance programs. As a Christian conservative, I am not anti-social programs. But we are called to help the poor through family, through church and local community first, not state-run programs like SNAP, okay? Your family, your church, and your local community should be helping you out when you fall down, okay? And we as Christians are sleeping at the wheel. I'm so upset about this, because the first place you should go when you lose your job isn't the Department of Employment Security. The first place you go when you're having a hard time paying for groceries, okay, the first place you should go is the church. And this used to be a thing, and I even saw it in my own life, right? We didn't have gobs of money growing up, okay? I had a great life, love my parents, but, you know, we fell on hard times. The first place my parents went was the church, okay, and their family. Okay, I'm not saying that they didn't use government programs. Okay, we used government programs, but I'll tell you, the first place my parents went, the first place they went was the family, the church, and the local community. And then if it was really that bad and they needed really extra help, then they got the food stamp. But they were only on it for a period of time while my father was out of a job, right? So we should go there first. Number one, go to your family first, see if they can help you. Number two, go to your church, see if they'll help you. Go to your local communities. There's a lot of organizations out there who would be willing to help you. Your local food pantries, there's a ton. Even in just your rural communities, there's so much help out there. We shouldn't be relying on a corrupt state that can't even get the math right. Okay? Just rely on your friends, your families, and your neighbors, okay? And then eventually we're going to get them out of a job, okay? And we won't need them anymore. First, we need to audit what should be done from here. I like to give you solutions. So the solution to this would be an audit of the SNAP administration. So that would be the Illinois Department of Human Services. Top to bottom, names, track the errors, figure out who made the errors, and then fire those people. Okay, so an audit. Second, fire those incompetent people and promote the people who are doing a good job. Promote the reformers, the people who are reforming the program. Third, adopt best practices from the states that are getting it right, like Texas, like Michigan, like Ohio. They've only got the 8 to 10% range. We are above the 8 to 10% range here in the state of Illinois. And there are only 11 other states that are higher than us. We are higher than 38 other states. We need to start looking at other states who are getting it right. Fourth, the most important, cut out the political games. No more blaming Republicans for our own administrative failures. Republicans are not coming for the SNAP program. They are coming for the abuse, the waste, and the fraud, and trying to hold these state actors accountable. So Governor J.B. Pritzker, the people of Illinois are watching. You might be able to spin this for the Chicago Press Corps, but you can't spin the math. And we just broke down the math for you. And you can't spin out God's truth, the waste, the fraud, the deception. And you can't spin that into compassion and saying that that's compassion. Waste and fraud and abuse is not compassion. These are acts of contempt. So I do have to take a quick break, but when we come back, I'm going to share a story with you, and hopefully our guest will be here. We're going to talk about pop culture thing. I usually don't do this kind of stuff, so let me know what you guys think about it. It's a pop culture type thing where this celebrity, Sidney Sweeney, she's an actress. She's known for being beautiful, talented, and she's also straight and blonde, which is why I think the feminazis are after her because of this commercial. I watched the commercial. I mean, I don't like the sex appeal commercials. They've never really done anything for me, or I don't think that they really get anybody to buy it except like your average man or maybe your non-Christian man. Okay, I understand it. Sex sells, right? I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of this commercial. However, I think that there's a reason why the feminazis are going after Sidney Sweeney specifically. So today's top story has to do with bubbles, literal bubbles, bathwater. And yeah, this is something that's in our culture. And I find it interesting that the feminazis have gone after Sidney Sweeney over this. So I got to take a quick break, but we're going to be right back. Enjoy this brief commercial break. Welcome back to Conservative Cat Clips, where we cut through the spin, we call out the nonsense, and we do it all with an unapologetic American flair. I'm your host, Kat, and today we're exposing the truth behind nonprofit organizations and how they helped fuel the border crisis. Let's be real, Joe Biden, he took an exit, but he left a border-sized crater in our national security, and really the biggest, sneakiest players weren't the politicians or the cartels, really. Those nonprofit organizations, yep, the tax-free do-gooders, they ran logistics for a mass illegal immigration operation. Take Catholic Charities, for instance. Catholic Charities USA, they pocketed $1.4 billion in 2022 alone. More than 60% of that came from government grants, your tax dollars. Then they turned around, used those tax dollars for bus rides, hotel rooms, and legal defense for people who blatantly broke our federal immigration laws. HIAS, they got millions in grants, and then they resettled people deep into the United States. They didn't do any kind of vetting, no transparency, and they had zero regard for the towns impacted by this overrun, like Springfield, Ohio. And just because the administration changed doesn't mean that the nonprofit conveyor belt has stopped. These groups have built a machine, and they built a machine under Joe Biden, and they're still using it to move tens of thousands of people, often under the radar. According to congressional watchdogs, just 4 major national profits helped transport and shelter over 35,000 illegal migrants in a single month. Just 4 helped transport and shelter 35,000 illegal immigrants in a single month. This is insane. That's not charity. That's infrastructure for illegal immigrants, and you helped pay for it. They housed them. They gave them hotel rooms. They gave them legal representation. And you helped pay for it, and you didn't even know it. Whether you knew it or not, they didn't care. Even now, as the new administration tries to restore law and order, these nonprofit organizations, they're lawyering up, they're pushing lawsuits, and they're working overtime to try to stall these deportations and keep the broken pipeline flowing. They want that pipeline to keep flowing, where they take tens of thousands of people and then they give them jobs. And they put them in jobs where they're ultimately going to be used as slave labor, because these companies are going to hang their illegal status over their heads. It's time to cut the cash, investigate the players, pull the nonprofit masks off, and we need to close up the border. We need to pull the nonprofit mask off the open borders agenda. Because if a group is using government money to move, house, and protect people in violation of federal law, that's not compassion, it's collusion. And I'll call it that. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. I'm Kat, reminding you that the border crisis wasn't built by weak presidents. It really wasn't built by Joe Biden. It was powered by rich nonprofits hiding behind halos and hashtags. And our laws were trampled all over, and our communities were overwhelmed. Let's clean it up, and let's do it for real this time. and defang these nonprofits. Hey, good morning. I appreciate you being here this morning. The taxpayer dollars that are spent on food programs, absolutely ridiculous. There are food pantries that deliver food to people. People that already have SNAP benefits are already getting SNAP benefits, delivery to your home via Uber. Yeah, like I said, that's why they want as many people on SNAP as possible. Like Governor J.B. Pritzker had said, like, if we got the error rate down, we're going to have to kick people off of SNAP, and we don't want to do that at all, because the reason why is because of the government dependency. They want you dependent on these programs, so that way you don't go to your local community, your food pantries, your churches. Okay. I mean, and I live in Lincoln, there is a church literally on every corner, and every single church has a food pantry, like every week. Okay. There is no way that you would not be able to get food or access to food. And what's really sad is we've lost that, I think, culturally, where if we lost our job or if we don't have enough money for groceries, where do we go first? Our first thought is to go to the Illinois Department of Human Services and apply for a SNAP card. That's our first reaction, rather than, hey, I wonder if my aunt can help me out with groceries this week. I wonder if my pastor would mind helping me out with groceries this week. I wonder if the church has a food pantry that I can go to this week, because I am really short on cash. Instead of going to these people who actually give a damn about you and who would actually care about you, you go to these faceless bureaucrats and you put all your trust in them, rather than the people, your fellow man, your neighbors, who you can see, who you can interact with. And that's the problem in the world today. Because if we were all doing that rather than running to DHS and the Department of Human Services to apply for our SNAP card, if we were all doing that, think about it. The next time somebody in your community falls on hard times and you fell on hard times and you asked, Aunt Susan for, a few $100s to get you through the week for the groceries for you and the kids, if Aunt Susan falls on hard times, she's going to come to you. Okay. And we're all kind of working together, and we're not relying on these faceless bureaucrats who don't even know your name and who can't get the math right. Okay. So yeah, this is just something that I've always said. Don't go and apply for government benefits. Don't do it. I've always said, try to go to your church first and try to go to your neighbors and your family first before you start applying for the government programs. The SNAP card, I think, is for, there is no reason, that is you've burned all your bridges with people and you are hated by your community, which means you probably need to move to a different community at that point. And you are, for some odd reason, unliked, and people will not help you out, which is very, very tough to do. Okay. But there are people like that, I'd imagine, out there. The government program is for the bottom of the barrel type folks, people who have abused their own family and have abused the church and their neighbors, and they're no longer getting help from those places. So now they have to go somewhere else, like the government. But that's really hard to do, because Christians were called to help even the sinner out and help somebody who is our adversary out. Okay. So it was really hard to do that, to burn all your bridges in the community. And I mean, the more I think about it, I'm not anti-SNAP, but I'm getting there. You know what I mean? All right, folks. Welcome back to the Conservative Cat Show. Go ahead, hit the subscribe button. We are going to be getting to our very special guest here, Hannah from the Right Perspective. It's a podcast, and we're going to be talking about today's story, with bubbles, literal bubbles. And I think that it reveals something far more slippery, beneath the surface of our culture. Okay, this story. So here's the story. Actress Sidney Sweeney, who is known as a beautiful, talented actress. How dare she? She's straight, by the way, and blonde. She does something that's pretty feminine. I would say it's feminine. I don't know. I don't like the commercial. Okay. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't like sex appeal commercials in general. But I will say that there is an actual sex appeal here. There's an actual degree of femininity displayed in this commercial. She's in the tub, it's bubbly, and you can't see anything. There's no nudity or anything like that. And she's laughing and she's, doing this flirtation thing with a wink and a nod. And apparently, the bath soap has a little bit of her bath water in it, which is odd and weird. But that's like a thing. With Twitch streamers, that was actually a thing with this one Twitch streamer I remember years ago, where she was selling her bathwater and it actually like blew up, where people really wanted it. People will buy pretty much anything if there's some sex appeal behind it. Okay. So she has this commercial out there, and cue the outrage from the feminists who lost their complete minds. Now, this wasn't about pornography. This is not a pornographic. I wouldn't say that this commercial, and I'll play the commercial here, and I'm going to get Hannah's reaction to it. And then we're going to chat about why we think the feminazis are losing their minds over it, what we think about the commercial. But this commercial is not like BDSM, Balenciaga, like type looking. Like there is so much out there. Miley Cyrus, Wrecking Ball, Naked, right? There's so much out there that has set women back so far. And this is not it. Like, I showed my husband this morning and I said, well, what do you think about it as a man? And he said, well, it kind of reminds me of those old like 80s cigarettes commercials or 90s commercials where there was a pretty girl and she was using a product. Okay, that's the sex appeal, the sex appeal market, and it is out there. So this is a pretty girl, and she is enjoying being pretty. Obviously, she knows she's being pretty, and she's making money off of being pretty, and she's cashing in on it. And folks, somehow that's really offensive to the feminazis. Why? Because they have no sex appeal. Okay, their idea of sex appeal is being angry and bitter and dressing up in BDSM gear and whips and chains and doing very nasty type stuff, strip teases, humping the ground. I mean, you've seen it. I mean, I'm not going to play it on this show because that's not this type of show. But you know it when you see it. Demi Lovato, JoJo Siwa or whatever. And a lot of the time, like Wrecking Ball, I came in like a Wrecking Ball. This is like a feminazi, feminist, like middle finger. Okay. Usually it comes with a social justice lecture, performances like that with the chips or with the whips and the chains and the leather. Okay. There's usually a social justice lecture. And usually they beat men over the head with this lecture. Okay. Because, it's kind of marketed as like, I don't know what you would call it, porn. And it's like a middle finger porn to men. I don't know. And it's all wrapped up in this rainbow-fisted rebellion. Now, Sidney Sweeney, she just is existing as a female, a blonde, straight female, and she's in a tub, which is traditionally, I would say, sexual, right? Wife and husband, in the tub, bubbles, candles, glass of wine, right? Like this is like your traditional sex appeal. And men like that. They don't like the BDSM teddy bears and the weird Wrecking Ball and Miley Cyrus shaving her head and the weird piercings that are going on. Okay. None of that is really actually appealing. So this is why feminazis have lost their mind, I think, over Sidney Sweeney. It's because it's actually appealing, and God forbid women actually do something, that is semi-sexual. I wouldn't even say this is overtly sexual. When I watched the commercial, I was like, okay, it's kind of like very tame. Okay. So let's talk about the hypocrisy. JoJo Siwa, she's like this rainbow pixie. Okay. And she's out there, dry, like humping the beaches, in her music videos. And she's saying that's empowering. There's this Charlie XCX that's out there. And like I said, I'm not really in this world. I just kind of really like, I know of JoJo Siwa, I know of Charlie XCX. And they pole dance. Like Charlie XCX actually was quite literally on the stage pole dancing, allegedly high, certainly half naked. Okay. And the crowd is applauding her as brave, as liberating. And suddenly the feminazis are calling foul when Sidney Sweeney is in a bathrobe, not naked. Okay. And she says something, kind of tongue in cheek, or does something kind of tongue in cheek with some soap. Okay. So Sydney's version of femininity is not approved, is not feminist approved because there's no rage behind it. Okay. Sidney, she thinks that she's beautiful, she's selling a product, and she's doing it in a very subtle way, which actually has a sex appeal for men. She's not weaponizing her body for activism. Okay. She's just leaning into her natural beauty, which is something that femininity, true femininity, is all about. Your natural beauty. Women are naturally beautiful creatures. The things that their bodies can do, like childbirth, incredible, like absolutely incredible. And when you lean into that natural beauty of being a woman, and that's why I'm so pissed off about drag queens. They look like Bratz dolls, and they're like super exaggerated, and they're wearing things that women would never wear. Okay. I can automatically tell when I see a tranny. Like automatically, I know when they're a tranny. Usually the hands are a dead giveaway. Okay. If their hands are like baseball mitts, then I'm like, okay, that's a tranny. But it's also the way they dress. They either dress like really, really little girls, like butterfly necklaces or hearts on their clothes, which is not something that adult women wear. They lean into like natural beauty, like think more like sundress. And you won't see transgender people dressing like that. They either dress like crazy Bratz doll or little girl. So Sweeney's crime here is not being ugly, really. So her crime isn't being promiscuous or having a sex appeal. It's that she has a sex appeal and that she's not ugly about it, and she's not angry. Okay. She's not trying to do something sexy or pornographic and screaming, shatter the patriarchy, down with men. But if you use your sexuality or your sex appeal to flirt a little bit, to entertain, to make money in a nostalgic kind of way, a wholesome nostalgic kind of way. Like I said, I'm not pro this commercial. I'd love, like, for the 80s commercials, you guys know them, like the cigarette commercials, the beer commercials, I think they call them the Bud Light girls, the Bud Light boob girls, right? In a Marilyn Monroe kind of way. If you make your money that way, they say that you're setting women back. How dare women use femininity without an ideological price tag? How dare they use their femininity to sell a product to men and use their femininity as a way to appeal to men? Like I said, I think all of it's dumb. Celebrities, commercials, sex appeal commercials. Like me, I want to know if the soap has chemicals in it. I want to know how great the soap actually is and the data points on it. And, like that's what's going to get me to buy soap. My husband's the same way. I don't think that the sex appeal really, like I showed him the commercial and like, he was like, yeah, he goes, it reminds me of the 80s stuff, but he goes, the way I buy soap, the way my husband buys anything, the advertising does not work on, some men. That's why, we're the consumer base, and usually things in the grocery store are targeted towards stores are targeted towards women, because men, they are not easily sold. And I would buy soap in a totally different way. Some men would buy soap in a totally different way, and the sex appeal isn't really advertising for typically Christians. I would say, like, Christians don't fall into the sex appeal ads as much as maybe a non-Christian, because we're told no, like, hey, this is not the way. Selling, making money off of your sexuality, that is not what was intended, the way God had intended it. So you pull back the curtain, though, here a little bit. Sidney Sweeney, she is a part of a rebellion, I would say, against the feminazi culture. Okay. And I can kind of tip my hat off to her because she's straight, she's beautiful, she's not apologizing for that, and she's actually using sex appeal to entice men. I don't like it. I don't like the fame. I don't like the vanity, right, at all, or the sex appeal in commercials at all, being a Christian. However, she's not crying about the patriarchy. And I want to make that clear. She's not telling you her gender is a social construct. Okay. She's not blaming men for all of her problems and screaming at men or coming up with a social justice lecture. She's just making soap suds and smiling and selling soap and using her femininity. So this is the kind of femininity that used to be celebrated. Like I said, the Bud Light commercials, the cigarette commercials, a lot of it is natural, kind-hearted, charming. There's an actual appeal there. That's what a lot of men admire. And the soap is doing very well, right? They've sold millions of bars. And, a lot of women want to return to this golden age of femininity where you can lean into this natural beauty, and it doesn't have to be screaming and BDSM gear and strip teases and yelling at men. Okay. A lot of women like to return to that. Me, I don't know. I just say keep it all out of it. Let's sell products for what they are and like what, but maybe I'm an outlier. I just don't, it doesn't work on me, the sex appeal at all. Like all of it. Sidney Sweeney's type, the feminazi type just enrages me because I'm like, what the hell is going on here? JoJo Siwa, Demi Lovato. But I think that there is a swing happening because you'll also see JoJo Siwa, Demi Lovato. A lot of them have abandoned this non-binary gender ideology stuff. So even JoJo Siwa, I think, has come out and said things like, she felt pressured into the LGBTQ community, and she's come out now and said that she's not non-binary. And I don't know, she's dating a man now, and Demi Lovato married a man. She came out and said that I think she said she was lesbian, and then she said she was non-binary. Like, I think the pendulum is swinging. Today's feminism, it's a bitter brand. Back then, feminism was more like leaning into this natural beauty, leaning into, like, there are standards for beauty. Okay. The holes in your face, the shaved head, the pink hair, that is not beautiful. Okay. Just objectively, there is an objective standard for beauty, and there's no room for joy in that type of, in modern feminism, there's no room for joy. There's only anger, victimhood, vulgarity, shock value. Okay, that's what's feminazism is all about. So Billie Eilish is also now apparently dating a man, or has come out and said that she's not a non-binary or bisexual or whatever. Okay, so Eilish, she hides her figure behind these oversized clothes. That is what she does. And she's talked about this before, to fight the male gaze. She purposely Billie Eilish purposely wears oversized clothes to fight the male gaze. But then she mocks women who embrace their body with confidence and playfulness, like Sidney Sweeney. And I just think that it's envy. Women are very shocking, are very interesting creatures. So you're starting to see this envy come out of the feminazi movement and the feminism movement. And there's no empowering going on. And that is what's going to make this crumble, is women eating their own, essentially, or like fighting each other within the movement. Okay, so that is how this is going to crumple. And I think that women need to step up and say, hey, enough is enough. This movement is destroying our daughters. This idea of anger and victimhood and vulgarity and not actual sex appeal is not something we should subscribe to as women. So it's just confusing. And I think Sidney Sweeney is subtly in rebellion against this feminazi stuff. So here's the truth. The Bible tells us that men and women are created different on purpose. God called that good, that women and men created different on purpose, and that is a good thing. He didn't use us to compete with each other, or he didn't make us to compete with each other, but rather to complement each other. So femininity is not about weakness. It's not about oppression. It's divine by design. And I think what Sidney Sweeney was doing was actually acts of femininity, leaning into natural beauty, not this BDSM or weird striptease or screaming at men. Okay. She was actually performing acts of real femininity in this commercial, I believe, in a respectful way. Now, I'm not totally pro this commercial, like I said, because I don't like sex appeal in commercials at all. I think it's a tacky way of marketing your product. If your product was actually good, you could just market the product, right? But true empowerment is not about crushing men and flaunting your vulgarity. It's not JoJo Siwa humping sand on a beach. Okay, this was actually in one of her music videos. It's not Charlie XCX doing a drug-fueled striptease. Okay, that's not power. It's really, honestly, a cry for help. I think a lot of the times these performances, but I want to bring my very special friend on. That is Hannah. Hannah from The Right Perspective. Good morning, Hannah. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Good. I'm so glad you joined the show. We are talking all things feminaziism and feminism today. I need to have you on, but tell us a little bit about The Right Perspective, your podcast, and what you hope that podcast, or who you hope that podcast will reach, and what it's all about. So,
yeah, so I'm slowly but surely just starting my podcast, The Right Perspective. I started it just kind of out of frustration of things just being so skewed by both sides, and far right and far left. And I just want there to be a place where people can come and talk about, the normal and regular things in the world, and that, we're not too far left or too far right. There is a common ground, a medium, and the right perspective.
Mm-hmm. Well, folks, go out, type it in your search bar, The Right Perspective, and subscribe to her channel and follow her on social media. You've got Instagram and Facebook, right?
I have Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. The Right Purse Pod.
Purse Pod, The Right Purse Pod. Go check it out. So I want to jump right in and share this commercial. I don't know if you've heard about this stuff before. Usually you are the cultural person, the pop
I try to stay up with the times.
Yeah, you do. And I was like, I gotta have Hannah on because I don't about this stuff, because it's just like anytime I hear like a celebrity's name, literally like something in my spine goes icky. Like stay away. I don't know. I'm just not in it. It's just not my thing. I'm more of a news hound, but I saw this and I was like, I gotta get Hannah's perspective on this. So let me play the commercial here. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but this is the commercial in its entirety, essentially. So take a look.
Hello, you dirty little boys. Are you interested in my body? Wash? Well, you can't have it. Because this isn't for boys, it's for men.
So this isn't for boys, it's for men. The commercial's a little longer than that, but that's essentially the commercial. So your reaction to the commercial, and then I want to get your take. A lot of feminists have come out and said that she has set women back 100 years because of this commercial. So your thoughts on the commercial?
For me, it's just like, what a commercial. Like it's one of the, lusted after women of this generation. I remember it being Megan Fox when we were growing up, and now it's Sidney Sweeney, and it's like, what do you mean this? How do you not expect this to happen? They're going to take their common, a marketing plan. They're going to take their common population, men who use that soap, and go, I wonder what they like.
Yeah. Well, and I thought it was shocking because it was like, you're setting women back by 100 years, and how could you do this? Like, this was one, she's a sex icon. Like,
Yes.
of course she's going to do some sort of sex appeal commercial. This isn't shocking. But I think it's more so because there's an actual sex appeal to it, like a traditional sex appeal, like bubbles, soap, candles, dim lighting.
Kind of like a manly background, like wood, like just, yeah, well done. Like, what? You hit your audience. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, she hit her audience, and you've got these. So you remember Wrecking Ball, right? I feel like I have to show something in contrast here, and I'll do that. Wrecking Ball, Miley Cyrus. I think is the best one. This was a music video. You know who JoJo Siwa is. There's a lot of like interesting things that they do in their music videos, like strip teasing, and a lot of it is like. Okay, so I think I've got this. I'm going to pull this up so that way we have a little bit of contrast. But so they've got like the BDSM gear, or like the leather and the shaved head, the pink hair dye. Why do you think that is more their style, and they don't do like the Sidney Sweeney style, if I'm making sense there?
Well, so for me, especially with JoJo Siwa and somebody like Miley Cyrus, they grew up in Hollywood from a very young age. JoJo Siwa, up until not even like 2 years ago, she was this child icon. She sold out every single bow she made. She sold out every single like glitter makeup set that she made. And same with Miley Cyrus, Hannah Montana, and everything. And if you're going to sexualize yourself, you almost have to do it in a non-sexy way. You have to go beyond the sexual scope, because that's the only way that those people, especially Miley Cyrus and JoJo Siwa, think that they can be accepted and kind of at the common ground. And JoJo Siwa came out as gay 3 years ago, and now she's completely taken a 180. And is dating a man, which honestly kind of came out of left field. Her Tesla was rainbow. All she did was have rainbow hair, rainbow eyes, rainbow glitter face, rainbow get up, glitter to the max. And now it's, she actually just came out with a music video called Betty Davis Eyes, which is a 1950s housewife, or she was an actor, but kind of like a housewife 50s look, and she's singing about it. And then, so it's like they have to go past the male gaze and completely sexualize it in order to feel accepted.
Well, and maybe they were, I don't want to say like Hannah Montana was super sexualized. My mom never actually let me watch it.
Well, that's the thing. They weren't. They were child icons. And in order to break free of Disney or Nickelodeon, which JoJo Siwa was a part of,
they've got to go.
You have to do a dramatic thing in order to, because you have to be, if you're a Disney actor, you have to, walk the narrow and straight road. And when people don't want to do that anymore, it's almost like they have to take a dramatic exit in order to not live their life. But I also think that they were sexualized behind the scenes for the most part. So, they're finally being able to show their true selves. And we get this crazy.
Well, and like I said, my mom never let me watch Hannah Montana.
Right.
Because she really thought that it was to a degree sexualized. She was in, high school and dating boys and things like that. And my mom was like this Christian mom. She wouldn't even let me watch Teletubbies. Okay, like she's one of those moms, Christian mom. She's like,
BBB only did not let me watch Nickelodeon or SpongeBob. which is
Yeah.
so I understand.
She was a Christian mom, and she said, "No, not in my house. Sorry." But like you said, behind the scenes, and because they were child actors, maybe to a degree, you're an actress or an actor, you have to put your sexuality out there, like in some sort of way. Hannah Montana, I think that she was like kissing boys and things like that, which is why my mom said, heck no, she's a young girl. I don't want you, be sexualized at that young of an age and think that that's okay. It's not overtly, and you wouldn't even think of Hannah Montana as sexual, but maybe like a little bit. And that played a role in their development, and they had to go to such an extreme because they started out kind of very subtly and they went to this extreme. Maybe they're mad because they were child actors and they were treated poorly. A lot of those, like Nickelodeon, like a lot of those child actors were really treated poorly, if not sexually abused. And now you're seeing it kind of manifest in their later years, like Miley Cyrus, which I'll show our listeners, just in case you guys aren't aware. Like, this is Miley Cyrus, Wrecking Ball, like chains and short hair.
I don't know if you remember that, but that wasn't the most crazy thing that she did. It was when she came out on the VMA Awards, like I think a week before this got dropped. And she was like in a teddy suit, like a furry teddy suit, and she was twerking on stage, and she had chopped her hair off. Wow. And that's when I remember going, because I was able to watch Hannah Montana. Honestly, she was somebody who, except for Kissing Boys, was one of the more mild shows and kind of who I looked up to, just because she went back to her home roots, like all of these things. But all of a sudden, the person that I grew up and loved was no longer existed, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That,
Yeah, and maybe it was just because they were so young that they didn't quite understand that, the subtle sexual appeal that was on, Hannah Montana.
And to go back to feminism, I think what's actually happening in Hollywood is they're not teaching women how to be women at all. And I think that why women are so misguided, especially in the generation I grew up, we had the Miley Cyrus who, we thought was tried and true to herself, and all of a sudden kind of had, and granted, everybody has crazy 20s and you're trying to figure out yourself, but they didn't let her figure out herself at all from teenagehood on. And what I mean by that is tell her what a true woman is, tell her, if she, growing up in scripture, all of that. And then to see kind of your crash out, what the kids are calling it these days, on live television. And for me, who was 16, 17 at the time, who was still a very moldable person, and seeing that and being like, okay, this is actually what femininity is. Okay, you can shave your head off, you can twerk on stage, you can do these things. Not saying that I believe that she was in the right, but at the time, somebody who is moldable, looking at that at 16 and 17 and going, is that what a true woman is? And I think that's what the culture shock is. I think that that's what these JoJo Siwas and all of these other, young influencers who are very sexualized. I know a lot of people on TikTok who follow, pillow talk stars, I'll just call them, because I'm not going to say the P word out loud, but like people who are making money off of sex, and they're literally being idolized by 13, 14, and 15-year-olds. Back in the day, I had a, straight across bob, had a Joe Jonas t-shirt, and I had acne all over my face. And now if you don't have the perfect skin, your cleavage somehow showing, and the perfect necklace, you're not pretty anymore. And that's not what it's about. You're made in God's perfect image. And that's not taught in society. And I think that that's why JoJo Siwa is the way that she is. And Sidney Sweeney is what men look at, is because we haven't taught women what men actually are attracted to.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly they act marketing, and Hollywood actually knows because they built a Sidney Sweeney commercial like this.
Yeah, they actually know, and they know what sells. And I think that women need more modesty and, like you said, more confidence. And a lot of what the feminazi movement is now today, it's all about this. Clearly there's no confidence there if you're going to these extremes. In this example, she's like making out with a hammer, right? And you're going to these shock value type extremes. You don't have the confidence because you're relying on this shock value to get attention, and that means that you are insecure, right? So we need to teach women that, hey, modesty, true confidence, not having to go straight to the shock value. You don't need to burn your bra, okay, or preach politics, or a social justice lecture to get attention. Sidney Sweeney, she gets all the attention she wants because of this weird.
I constantly hear from the right or the left that they're attracted to Republican men, but Republican men are not in their ideals. They are attracted to the traditional, let me open the door from you, let me, take you out on a date, let me get you flowers, let me pay for the meal. They're attracted to that, but they want to be respected. And what I mean by that is they want to, they want the man to change his ways in order to align with her. And it's like, okay, but do you really want the man who opens the door, or are you denying yourself your true ways about, actually being swept off of your feet, actually be given the flowers? That's not it's a feminine crisis right now to be taken out on a date, and God forbid he pays for the bill.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh, I should I should be able to do that too. We're not saying that you can't, but
how dare you open the door for you fascist?
What me and you believe, what most of the conservative movement believes, is yes, women can work, women can do that, women can provide for their families, but it's God, husband, wife, and children. God comes first, but the man is also leading the center of the household. This is how these conservative men are, created, but also built up to be. And then you can't freak out when, they want their conservative values as well. And it's crazy to see the feminine movement say that I'm attracted to Republican men, but I want them to have a Democratic standard. That's like asking for an elephant to grow a unicorn horn. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, and you have all these feminist gatekeepers. For years they've told us, do whatever you want with your body, and like women should be able to do whatever they want with their body. And it was all about sex positivity and empowerment. And until if you start like JoJo Siwa, she's already gotten all kinds of backlash for dating being in a heterosexual relationship. The LGBTQ community is outraged. Demi Lovato, married to a man, wore a traditional white dress. People were in her comment section, how could you do this? Down with the patriarchy. How could you have like a traditional looking wedding? Like her photos were really beautiful, like traditional looking wedding.
Because that's what she wanted.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Like
God forbid.
And that's another thing. And like somebody who's with the times and watches reality TV and does all these things. When society comments on it and goes, oh, they're a Trump supporter, so we shouldn't watch the show. Why? It's funny.
Yeah.
Why can't we go back to the day where people were quiet about their politics? And now we can't be, me and you, because we are getting overtaken by the left. But, it used to be a quiet thing. Women used to be able to stay at home and have babies and live a happy life, and that wasn't controversial. Mm-hmm. And now it is.
Yeah. If you at all fit within the traditional norms, no, that's not what we want. So you're not about inclusivity. Same with the body positivity movement, right? Lizzo, she's finally like getting healthier, and she's been posting about her health journey and losing a ton of weight. And people are like, abandoning her from the body positivity movement. Like, God forbid you actually gravitate towards the regular standards of beauty. Like, there's an actual objectivity to
And
beauty.
crazy thing, the conservative movement says to love yourself like Jesus does. You love your body at any point, but God says to love your body. Therefore, you're supposed to treat it well. Therefore, you're supposed to take care of it. And that's why a lot of more conservatives are more healthy individuals, because biblically, we're supposed to treat our body the way that God loves us.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna get to some of these comments. Yeah, I do like those commercials where you steal the Old Spice body wash. I will not lie, I do steal my husband's Old Spice.
Well, and here's another thing: men's deodorant doesn't attract bugs. Why did they make women's deodorant to attract bugs?
To attract bugs?
Yeah. I used to have to wear male's deodorant at football games, and I still do. If I like go out for a run and stuff, I steal Jimmy's that he's left behind, because the ingredients they use in male's deodorant doesn't like attract bugs. If I use that sweet smelling deodorant, like Dove is what I use, I'll have, like, it attracts bugs.
Yeah. See, I was talking about this earlier, like Sidney Sweeney, this bar of soap play, and I was talking with my husband about it, and I was like, so would this make you want to buy soap? And he goes, no. He goes, you know me, I get the Excel spreadsheet out, I look at the ingredients, and I see what every ingredient does, and then I make my decision from there. I'm like, okay, so
Brian, you're like one of like
that's what he said. He goes, I'm probably not, but the sex appeal commercials have never really worked on me either. They just don't, like, and maybe it's just women too. The sex appeal commercials don't.
I think she's just such an icon when it comes to the media right now. Mm-hmm. Like you said, a sex icon. And I just think that they played with that, but also, and I mean, just like what that person said about the Old Spice body wash, for some reason, men's body wash smells nicer. So also, here's another thing. I think it's a play on, I already used my husband's body wash, and now this, the sexiest woman alive is scrubbing her body down with body wash.
Yeah, and this is a men's
play on women buying it.
Yeah.
If you buy this, if you scrub this, you too can look like me and get the men that I attract.
Yeah, there's an angle there. I like this one comment. This is from Ryan. Women don't need to sell bathwater to show us they're sexy. I just don't get it. Yeah, I don't get it either. I think Ryan is also kind of a bit Christian conservatives, I would say. Christian.
I can guarantee that Ryan probably has an Excel sheet.
Yeah. An Excel sheet, and like, we don't buy soap unless there's clean ingredients in it, and I'm like, I'm a nut in that way, and I am of the belief of just excellence. Like, don't get me with the gimmicks. I just want an excellent product, and
I want the best of the best.
Yeah, and I feel like hopefully we get there at some point. I think that there's this swing going on where we're not really doing the crazy sex appeal, like the crazy pornographic commercials anymore, because there have been commercials like that where they're just straight up pornographic or straight up like anti-men, and they pitch it as feminism. I think that the pendulum is swinging, and we are leaning into more natural, traditional forms of beauty and standards. Hopefully we get to a place in consumerism where we just sell the product, and the product is good, and we want the product because it's good, and we don't need to rely on these gimmicks anymore.
Well, Maha has made that possible, right? With our food and what's going into our, even our chemicals and everything that's being, if you're putting on body lotion, even those chemicals, or just food that you're taking into your body. But also, I think that what's always happened is sex sells. But now that we know that the media is a farce, it's like, 1984, you're going back to the, George Orwell in the book, just like, you can sell that for all you want until you wake up and you go, yeah, but they're selling it to me for a reason. Yeah.
So more skepticism. I think the consumer is being trained to be more skeptical. And I hope that starts to become bigger. I mean, she sold a lot of the Bathwater soap, which was shocking to me. I was like, millions worth of the soap has been sold already, which is
That's
disappointing.
hilarious.
Damn it. Damn it. I wish that we just, but maybe,
I want to know how many women bought it, because I can guarantee you it's probably more shocking than we thought.
Yeah, I guarantee women bought it for the men.
Women bought it for men, or women bought it to use it to see if men would be attracted to it.
Yeah, I bet so. Ryan, he goes, I use any soap, but if it smells like bathwater, I'm out. Yeah. And like, I wonder if it actually has bathwater in it. Like, they say that, and I think it's more so of like internet.
I'm literally, yeah, but then now we're having this conversation and we're literally doing what the people who had this product, they wanted it to be controversial. They wanted us to talk about it so that the next time we're in a store, we're looking down the aisle and we try to find bathwater.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that pretty much does it for today's show. Hannah, I did also want to get your take on this. The public media. I don't know if you've been following that. We had a big show on that today. PBS and PR. We had an Illinois congressman come out and say, we need to fund PBS and PR as much as possible because it's providing education.
How is it providing education when in court they said that almost 100% of their journalists are left-leaning?
Yeah, well, and then I think his name is, he was a former NPR guy, and he wrote this piece, and he did like research on it, and they found in the Washington, D.C. newsroom that there were 87 Republicans and 87 Democrats and 0 Republicans in this Washington, D.C. newsroom. So, I think it's funny. They say things like Sesame Street is being canceled and Big Red Dog, Clifford's Big Red Dog is being canceled. And how could they cut the funding for those educational kiddie programs? Really, those aren't the programs we take a huge issue with. I think with as Republicans, I think it's more so the Trump is Hitler NPR.
Okay, cool. And Clifford can get picked up by Hulu or Netflix or Peacock, or they're going to make millions. Clifford ain't going away.
Yeah.
Sesame Street ain't going away.
And my mom, we talked about this a little bit earlier. My mom, she never let us really watch a ton of TV. I mean, I don't think we got a TV until I was like a freshman in high school, which was like kind of crazy. My parents still don't have Wi-Fi. We were like growing up in the Stone Ages. Like, shared one of those like slider phones with my twin brother in high school, until we were about like juniors, and then we got our own phones, I think. But
yeah, we probably sound ancient to some people now.
I know it. Well, it happens.
Slide-up phones.
The technology, like it just happened very, very quickly. Like, and people don't realize, we're 26. People don't realize that we were like, the flip phone age, and like we.
The first iPhone came out when I was a junior in high school.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
Makes me sound very, and then Ryan Math said, y'all make me sound older. Thanks. You're welcome, Ryan. No, that makes us sound ancient, but it's true. We sort of
so fast.
But television was the only way. There wasn't any streaming services back when we were growing up.
There wasn't. So, I mean, Clifford the Big Red Dog. My mom, she never let me watch that kind of stuff. The big thing that she never
let me watch that.
Who?
DPB let me watch Clifford.
My mom did not. Well, the whole thing my mom was about was not lying to me. And like the whole Santa Claus thing, they would pretend and, pretend that Santa was a thing. But anytime I asked my mom and dad if Santa was real, they would never lie. They would just like completely ignore me, or like, I could tell that they knew, like, they wanted to tell me that Santa wasn't real, and I knew it like at age 5. Right. And I think it's because my mom was like so obsessed with not lying, or like not pretending, or living in a fantasy world where, the cat dog thing on Nickelodeon. She was very anti that. She was like, well, cats and dogs can't breed together. And she like, that was my mom. She was like, nope, and I grew up to be, you know, like sort of a realist pessimist, probably pessimistic, but I am like not that upset about Sesame Street being canceled or being cut. I mean, you can still get it, obviously. I think Sesame Street was on HBO
Well,
Max.
first of all, it's been around for how many years and how many episodes? And honestly, the OG Clifford is better than the Clifford that they're doing right now. Honestly, if we're gonna be like 100% honest, I mean, like I used to watch it. Again, I'm aging myself on VHS. So like, there's YouTubes out there. You can look up Clifford for the past. I mean, if we're 27, you can look up Clifford for the past 20 years and find episodes. You can find Sesame Street episodes about kindness and love and all of those realist things before it, you know, kind of got taken over a little bit. You know, everything's on the internet. Not only that, like I said, this isn't the only time, or this isn't the only. PBS is not the end all be all. A lot of people don't have cable anyway. A lot of people have streaming services. It's going to get picked up. I think why PBS and NPR are mad is because they know that once Clifford's bought out, that once Sesame Street is bought out, there's not a really value to them anymore. Especially if they're just a left-leaning journalist. You're going to be like everybody else.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I don't need Clifford telling me, you know, how gender equality or whatever, or food stamps, you know. Somebody actually messaged it and they were like, Sesame Street talks about food insecurity and food stamp or SNAP benefits. Like, I wouldn't doubt it. I mean,
well, here's another thing. It's like, just to comment on that really quick. It's like when I grew up watching Sesame Street, yes, we grew up that people were born different with us and come from different backgrounds, and maybe this person doesn't have as much as you and you have to be kind, but it stopped there. You're just giving anxiety to children that Joe Schmo on the road or Joe Schmo in their class might not be able to afford food. How is that their responsibility? It's not.
Yeah, and I think that it's really fascinating how these like Clifford, like a dog can be red, you know, and I think it's interesting that it started out as something so harmless, but they like took it the inch and went a mile with it. So if a dog can be red, I can be a girl. If I'm a little boy, you know, I can be anything I want to be if a dog can be red. And I think that's why, you know, my mom was just ahead of the times, you know. I think that she was just ahead of the time. She saw it for what it was, like, they're trying to straight up, you know, confuse children and not tell them the reality of life. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I watched like a lot of the Disney stuff. Like, I remember on a loop watching Fox and the Hound. I was like obsessed with Fox and the Hound, or any of the animal shows, like Big Bear or Brother Bear. But Brother Bear, I think, was one of them. Lilo and Stitch, I absolutely loved. So, you know, I'm not saying I wasn't like didn't watch TV growing up. I watched it all on VHS, but some of this like public media type stuff or those Nickelodeon's Disney shows, I always say this, Mama Peterson was ahead of her time, because, you know, they grew up and then they wound up into these crazy sex shock value actresses and actors. And then Clifford the Big Red Dog is talking about gender equity now. Or Sesame Street is talking about food stamps and food insecurity. So I just think that it wasn't ill-intended in the beginning, but they took something that was like about an inch that everybody could kind of get behind.
It's just like anything of the left agenda. I think why people are leaving it right now is because they took an inch and they went a mile. Or they took an inch and then they took another inch and they took another inch and then they're like, okay, now we're going to go a mile and see what people do. And oh, wait, but you were okay with those 3 inches before, and now we've taken the mile, and you're a racist because those 3 inches were okay and now this mile's not. Like, that's what's happening in our society right now.
And they're playing on the nostalgia. That's what's so upsetting about it, is that they play on the nostalgia of things like Sesame Street or even Hannah Montana, and then they take those things that we hold and cherish that went an inch and everybody could kind of like oh, this is
Yeah,
good.
but they're also using it as a smokescreen because like you said, we don't care about Sesame and Clifford. Keep it on. I don't care. What we care about is that 95% of your journalists that are reporting for PBS are left leaning, and there's no moderate or Republican side to your process, to how you're doing things, to the people in charge. And why is that going to be governmentally funded? That makes no sense.
Yeah, and publicly we're forced.
Get a left-leaning agenda or left-leaning billionaire to purchase it, because there are a lot of those left-leaning billionaires.
Yeah, George Soros would love to buy PBS, I'm sure. So, folks, that's going to do it for us today. Hannah, again, tell us about the Right Perspective podcast.
You can Right Perspective podcast on the Right Perspective podcast on Facebook, the Right Purse Pod on Instagram and Twitter. Don't have it up and running yet. I got a husband who is deployed and coming home really, really soon, but I'm working on something with Kat and DPB, and we're just gonna, we're gonna take it to the sky, hopefully. And I hope to, be on the show a lot more. So
yes, a frequent flyer here on Conservative Cat, and we always appreciate Hannah, and we appreciate your husband's service. Big thank you to you folks. And folks, at the end of the day, what we need to do is return to beauty, truth, and grace. And the bathwater's fine, but until America, America needs a culture bath. That's what we need. We need a culture bath, and we need to prioritize truth, understand that beauty has an objective standard, and that grace is something that we should uplift. All right, folks. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye. Love you so much. Talk to you again soon.